Recording in progress.
Welcome in to the first of our preview episodes on Betting the Pitch. I'm your host, the real_G Warner. You can find me on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. We'll be doing these, I guess, live on YouTube until Twitter changes its mind and stops requiring expensive accounts or monthly fees in order to broadcast live on their platform. Elon Musk is a joke. But we're going to go through the English Premier League. I'm going to talk about some movement in futures plus some new prices that come up as we are one day away. It's now Friday, August 9th in the United States. Late night with the real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube, as always. But we're one day away from the Continental or the whatever Shield, Manchester United and Manchester City. So I figured I'd go from I guess, projected bottom of the league to top and go through each of the teams, give an idea of kind of what I'm expecting from them each season, come out with an ultimate best bet, a futures play for the end of this episode, and we'll get right into it. This will be, of course, on Instagram at the real_G Warner, YouTube at the same, and under the Betting the Pitch podcast network on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. So if you're not subscribed to any of those places, please leave a 5-star review. It's huge for the search rankings, and get ready, buckle in for another big season of football, soccer mixed together of European football, or as the Americans like myself call it, some soccer as we get into it. So let's start in the English Premier League, as that's where the money is. That's usually how I begin. This is an all English Premier League episode. We'll start with Leicester City, as they have the highest odds right now based on Bet Online, quoting all lines courtesy of Bet Online tonight. But they had the highest odds to be relegated, so figured might as well start there. Let's see. I can read that to you because that does seem to be relevant, I think. Okay, so let's see. That's not what I'm trying to do. Trying to find things live. Just I've already prepared it, and then finding it now is especially fun. But all right, so okay, so don't need to see the line. Okay, to be relegated, favorites at minus 280. It's $280. United States will win you 100 for Leicester. Ipswich, another recently promoted, minus 125, down to Southampton plus 105. And then we get to some, I guess, clubs that had survived last season. Everton plus 185, Nottingham Forest plus 165, up to Wolves plus 350, then Brentford for 25 off of a really horrible season. But figured those prices were relevant and may come up later in the show. But we'll start with Leicester City, and kind of they were the big favorites to win the championship last season after being relegated 2 seasons ago from the English Premier League. They had the huge parachute payments. That was a big deal. And they were able to do what they needed to win the second tier, or win the championship, and get promoted right back to the English Premier League. Their manager left for another job, and they brought in Steve Cooper, who was at Nottingham Forest for a lot of last season. Left because he didn't get along with the owner, it seemed, at Nottingham Forest. Big, I guess, power struggle there. But ultimately was a very defensive manager, which is a big change from what Leicester City were last season in the championship, scoring a ton of goals and really were playing aggressively. It's going to be a big step up in competition, and especially when you look at what's happened to their club and kind of where all their players have gone. So the yawns are back, because it's 12:30 Central Time in Dallas, Texas right now as I record, but wanted to get something out there before get into the baseball weekend, and then, of course, everything that's coming out later, give everyone more time to watch. Expecting that I'll be doing the midweek matches like Champions League and such recordings on Monday nights, hopefully broadcasting Monday night or sent out on the various platforms, YouTube, Instagram, also Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're putting that out Monday nights, and then we're trying to do Thursday night this year for the soccer show, but probably Fridays would be most likely if I had to guess. But looking at the transfers at Leicester City, they lost Kieran Dewsbury-Hall, who's probably their most important player, central midfielder, left for Chelsea. I don't know where Chelsea's getting the money from, but we'll get to them later. Kelechi Iheanacho has left on free transfers to Sevilla. Also, some other moved on players like Dennis Pratt and Mark Albrighton, who had been pretty much mainstays in the Leicester City team for a while. Also, Harry Sutar has left on a loan transfer to Sheffield United. So, not great to see them lose a really important central midfielder. They got 35.5 million euros, but that's still a big spot to replace. They brought, I guess, back in that similar type of deal, Michael Golding from Chelsea. In return for exchange for 6 million euros, or about there. Caleb Okoli has come in from Atalanta, but was not playing there for 14 million euros. And Ishaku Fatawu coming in from Sporting Lisboa, or in Lisbon, paid 17 million for a new right winger. So not a lot of good in the transfer market. Probably why Leicester are minus 280 favorite to be relegated. Jamie Vardy's still there at 37 years old. Only squad value is $1 million right now. So not sure we expect too much out of him, and really did nothing for Leicester City 2 seasons ago. Unfortunately, they usually talk about in soccer 30 years old is the age where everything goes down a bad path. And now at 37, I don't even know what to say, especially because Vardy was a pace guy. Probably not a good situation for him. Bobby De Cordova-Reid has come in from Fulham on a free transfer. I don't know what is to really expect from him, though certainly some experience. Stefan Mavididi, who's looked really great for a lot of his time. And then a bunch of other names that I think are okay, but like Boubacar Samare has come back from a loan from Sevilla. That's important in the midfield. Seems like a lot of these names, because it's kind of a similar team that we've seen in the past from Leicester. A lot of names we know. James Justin, and we can see if he stays healthy. But a lot of questions really about what this team's going to look like under Steve Cooper. They're going to certainly switch to a more defensive brand, which we might see some potential number changes, or just some numbers that might be a little bit off, just based on where I think expectations would be, especially because ultimately I think Leicester was an offensive team just one season ago in the championship, and should be very, very different heading into this season. I'll move next to the next most likely to be relegated. I'll go to Ipswich Town. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly their hashtag is for this season, but they were the second place finishers in the championship automatic qualifiers. And so let's get into kind of what they've done with their club. And just for, I guess, argument's sake, I can say Leicester, total market value of their squad estimated north of 183 million euros. Ipswich Town are 91 and a half. So kind of surprised to see that Leicester is given a worse chance to stay up. Maybe that's about continuity at Ipswich. But there's going to be a big talent problem at Ipswich, it seems. Looking at what they've done in terms of kind of who they've brought in, what they've lost, I can't say I know a ton about what they have lost. Gustin Ahadme has left for Charlton Athletic. That doesn't seem like a big deal, though it was over $1 million in a sale. Idris El Mazouni has gone to Oxford. I mean, all these names are tiny. They have spent some money on right winger Amari Hutchinson from Chelsea, who've been purging players left and right, but somehow bringing in a lot as well. Jacob Graves for almost 22 million has left for Hull City. Liam Delap has left for center forward for Manchester City. And then they lost Arjanet Muric to Burnley, who had been playing there last season, if I remember correctly. Bringing in Ben Johnson as a free transfer, but who knows what that's worth. West Ham's, he was playing a fair amount, but never really looked that impressive to me. Excuse me, I guess they brought in Liam Delap from Manchester City. Let me correct that, for almost 18 million euros. So they spent nearly 73 million euros. That's not nothing for a club coming up from the championship, but big question, really, especially for Kieran McKenna, their manager, who's been around since 2021 and has a long-term contract till 2028. So he's been around for a while, and that's probably why Ipswich are only minus 125 to be relegated. Far different than Leicester City at this point, especially with a much lower squad value. I wonder, really, because the efficient market hypothesis kind of would say that spending reflects how teams will play. We'll see what that all turns into this season. But I don't have a lot on this club. I mean, I definitely recognize the Ben Johnson name coming over from West Ham. Axel Tuanzebe is in center as a center back, and Muric is back from or has been bought from Burnley. Let me correct what I said earlier as well. I guess I'm misreading tables at this late in the night. But stone foot, but decent sized goalkeeper, bringing in a youth name from Manchester City to try to score goals as a center forward. Spent on a center back, which probably is the best thing you do for a new club, the Premier League, and then a flash player, right winger. Spent a lot of money from Chelsea. I guess you need goals to stay up, of course, but defense will probably be the most important asset for Ipswich Town in this season. We'll move next to Southampton, a name you certainly know, plus 105 to be relegated. I think I'll eventually switch to another pricing schedule once we get a little bit further from the bottom of the table. But Southampton, they were very unimpressive, I felt, in the championship playoff final, but ultimately did enough, I guess, to get there, and good for them. Saints FC, they've had really good, I think, history playing very well at home. Came right back up after a relegation. That's important, especially for the club, the value, thing like that. We're a pretty big underdog, but we're able to beat Leeds 1-0 in the championship playoff at Wembley Stadium all the way back on May 26th. So big win for them. We'll see exactly what happens with the squad as they retain Russell Martin, who's initially appointed the end of 2023 and is, I guess, going until 2026, but we'll see. In terms of movement, so Shea Adams has left for Torino on a free transfer. Never really, I think, hit as a Premier League player, unfortunately. Didier Ledesar has gone to Olympique Lyonnais in France. Probably will be not a very popular player in the Olympique, the Classique, or whatever, when Olympique Lyonnais play Olympique de Marseille, but not really an issue for Southampton this season. Romain Perrault has left for Real Betis. That seems like a really good signing because he showed up a lot of talent. And Lianco has left, a center back as well. So they've had two center backs leave, though you could argue that might not have been huge losses for about 8 million euros combined. Romain Perrault as a left back seems like something that they might miss, but we'll end up seeing how that all moves. In terms of arrivals, Taylor Harwood-Bellis has come in as a center back from Manchester City. He was playing at Southampton last year, so they completed a purchase. Flynn Downs, the defensive midfielder from West Ham, also was on the team last year. Yukinari Sugawara from AZ Alkmaar in the Netherlands is there. Ben Brereton Diaz, who's been all over the place, and Ronnie Edwards spent $3.5 million on another center back, which was not. Looks like he's a completely new person to show up. I think my take on Southampton at plus 105. I mean, we saw all the teams from last year get relegated, so that would be my initial expectation. But there is clearly some part of the market that's believing more in Southampton than Ipswich and in Leicester, despite finishing lower in the table and not getting the automatic bids or earning the automatic bids to the Premier League. But I mean, I liked what I saw from them in the playoffs, but that was about all I really tuned in for. They'd spent a ton of money on trying to get talented youth back when they were in the Premier League in a season where they almost set up to be relegated with Mara, Edozie, and plenty of other players as well. Also brought in Adam Lallana for, I guess, some additional maybe leadership or something. A lot of names that we've seen before. Carlos Alcaraz come back from a loan with Juventus. So, I mean, there's some talent here. Charlie Taylor coming in from Burnley as he wants to stay in the Premier League, clearly. And then there's some other good players on this team. So that's probably what we're talking about here, and definitely interests me for moving down, I guess, the line throughout the table. Next on the list is the Everton Football Club, the Toffees. They are plus 185 to be relegated, which is I'm kind of surprised to see them forced most likely to be relegated, considering the point deductions that they faced last season in the Premier League. And really, I thought they played really well despite losing a bunch of points. Should have been nowhere near relegation zone, if not but for those points. I'm not a lawyer, so I probably shouldn't say that. But they've done some expenditures. They brought some players in, of course, sold some as well. Big question is, what could they keep and what can they turn into? Because ultimately, I feel like I was fairly impressed with how they did. I thought they were great. I mean, Sean Dyche, we know what he's going to give, though he was a little bit more attacking last year than I think anyone expected. They play very well at home. That's exactly what I'd like to do, or like to bet, and certainly will be looking to back the Toffees at home this season. They did sell Amadou Onana, who's an important central defensive midfielder, to Aston Villa for nearly 60 million euros. That's a pretty good sell. They certainly need to spend that elsewhere. They spent about 50 of it so far. Of course, transfer market window should still be open. Also traded Lewis Dobbin to Aston Villa for nearly 12 million euros. Ben Godfrey left for Atalanta at 12 million euros. And I guess they got back Tim Bunum, there we go, for 11 million euros from Aston Villa. So a lot of player swaps have been going on for sure. Iliman Ndiaye or Ndiaye, feels like the way they pronounce Ndiaye or Njai in the United States is way different than they do in European football. I would trust probably the Europeans better. But Ndiaye, maybe 18 million euros from Olympique de Marseille. Certainly was a good young attacking talent there. Also another French purchase, Jake O'Brien from Olympique Lyonnais. I believe he is an Irish national for 19.5 million euros. And then Jesper Lindstrom, who had left Eintracht Frankfurt after a really good season, didn't really play much at Napoli, but he is in for a $2 million loan fee. That might be the biggest thing or boon for the Everton offense. I love what I've seen from him. Neil Maupay is back. Will be interesting. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, we'll see if he can ever really stay healthy. Big question. But Jesper Lindstrom playing that 10 position, I think, is something I'm most interested in looking forward to with Everton this season. Pickford's still going to be a psychopath with bad hair, but he's really a good defensive goalkeeper. I guess that goes without saying, defensive goalkeeper, but I've been impressed by him. So far, Jared Branthwaite has stayed. That's a big deal. Tarkovsky's back again to foul the shit out of everyone. Excuse my French. Michael Keane's around. So there's plenty of I guess, mainstays have stuck around. Seamus Coleman at 35 years old now, captain. So there's some holdovers, probably not getting much prettier as a team, and certainly not under Sean Dyche, but to be plus 185 to be relegated and fourth most likely, according to the Bet Online odds as of August 8th. That's surprising to me. That it would be, I guess, that grim, or that the expectations are that grim, and probably will set me up to be backing Everton a fair amount this season. Move next to Nottingham Forest. They are under a new manager, of course, because they got rid of Steve Cooper way back when. Nuno Espirito Santo, I don't think, was a very good fit there, but he's sticking around. So we know they're going to play very defensively, ride a good home crowd, kind of in Everton's frame. They are plus 185 to be relegated, I guess, same price as Everton, so tied for fourth most likely. In terms of what they've done in the transfer market, Moussa Niakate has left for Lyon, former captain of Mainz in Germany. Don't know that he was playing too much, but got a lot of money for him. Odysseas Vlachodimos, Greek international goalkeeper, he's left for Newcastle, nearly 24 million euros. That's not a big deal. Or Mangala to Lyon. He stayed for nearly 24 million euros. I don't know where Lyon's getting all this money from, honestly. Scott McKenna has come in. That's probably helpful. Has left for Las Palmas in Spain, as they are trying to get on a much different path. Started the year off so well in Spain and then really fell apart later in the year. And then Remo Freuler has officially stayed at Bologna for their Champions League this season. In terms of rivals, Elliot Anderson, I guess the exchange maybe with Odysseas Vlachodimos. Elliot Anderson, central midfielder from Newcastle, didn't play too much, but we'll see what he ends up delivering. Nikola Milenkovic from Fiorentina, a Serbian national. He is 14.3 million euros purchase. Jota Silva from somewhere in the Portuguese league. Vitória Guimarães. Also Marcos Stamanic. I don't know that name very well, from Red Star Belgrade. Carlos Miguel also coming in as a goalkeeper for only 4 million euros from looks like Corinthians in Brazil. So in terms of what is left, not a ton, really. I mean, good players, but that weren't really doing much for Nottingham Forest. And they've spent a fair amount on a Fiorentina center back, and then tried to fill in some other players around. Spent a lot of money on Elliot Anderson in midfield. So we'll see. He's clearly going to be an important piece to them if they're going to spend 41 million euros, whether it's written off by 23.5 million coming in for the Vlacadimo sale, but certainly something of interest for me to look at. Manuel Dennis, a name to see, got some pace in there for Nottingham Forest. That's a big deal. We'll have some sort of combination of Taiwo Awoniyi and Chris Wood at center forward. Don't probably won't see both of those guys playing together. Ilanga should improve. I mean, there's probably some good things that he said about Nottingham Forest. Morgan Gibbs-White, one of the best number 10s, at least especially with how little he had around him in the past. I don't know necessarily if I am a believer in Nuno Santo. I'm really not. I know that he'll play defensively and is probably a home underdog I want to look at a lot this season. But I think the big question is, can they avoid making bad mistakes? We see in goalkeeper, it looks like Matt Sells should still be the starter with Matt Turner, the United States international, behind him. Didn't play much towards the end of last season, kind of lost that job. Also, Andrew Omobamidele is also in from Nottingham Forest. Played for Nottingham Forest last year, but came in from Norwich City. That's probably a young center back that they want to build around alongside the addition of Nikola Milenkovic. So probably not a lot of talent here overall, but and kind of a weird expenditure on Elliot Anderson, but looking forward to seeing what he brings. $15 million, worth $15 million, but sold for 41.2. Sounds like some cooking of the books, but I don't want to accuse anyone at this late hour. Moving next to Wolves, and they are a little bit higher than both Everton and Nottingham Forest, nearly double at plus 350 to be relegated. And when I look at Wolves, I mean, they always get screwed, at least Gary O'Neill does, it seems, by the VAR. And I think they're the only team that voted to kill VAR totally in their in the next season of the Premier League. But Gary O'Neill's back, and I love him, as he's made a ton of money for me when he was at Bournemouth, and also looking at him at Wolves last season as well. So I love seeing him there. Going to be a very defensive side. They sold Max Kilman to West Ham for nearly 50 million euros, but didn't really lose a lot else. In terms of what they've brought in, they've loaned in Jorgen Strand Larsen, who is a big-bodied, I think, Norwegian who played at Celta de Vigo and was honestly showing his growth last season. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. Certainly might suffer with a little bit of physicality in the Premier League, but I love really any sort of attacking help for Wolves does interest me a lot. Rodrigo Gomes has come in from Sporting Braga for 15 million euros. That looks like the biggest expense. Tommy Doyle, central midfielder from Manchester City, for 5 million, and Pedro Lima, a right back, has come in from Sport Club de Recife. So that sounds like something in Spain. So not a lot of movement there, really. Sasha Clyde's dessert, what a surprise. I think He Chen Huang was one of the most important players. We'll see what they can get from Mateus Cunha this season. There's some talent there. I feel like Wolves were big underdogs, and until the season was kind of decided they were going to finish mid-table, I made a lot of money on them, and I look forward to doing that again this year. Hopefully seeing Ryan at Nori, 23 years old now, Algerian French, from, I believe, black and white side in France, who are relegated. Angers, as I believe where they got him from. I'm really looking forward to it. Jose Sa certainly has his haters out there, but does a fairly good job. And honestly, Daniel Bentley, the backup goalkeeper, has been solid as well. So I like this Wolves team. I'm surprised that they're so little is expected of them. But again, another team I think I'll look forward to potentially messing with down the line, and certainly throughout the 38-week season, plus the cups and things of that nature. Moving next to Brentford, they're plus 425 to be relegated. They're currently valued at nearly 420 million euros. That's gigantic for such a small club, but that's what happens, I guess, when you stick around. And thank you for all of you tuning in. I've turned on the comment feature, so if you have anything you'd like to mention, I'm not sure exactly how to get it over here because I'm recording this live on StreamYard, but maybe if you comment on YouTube, it'll come through. We'll see. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. But I will now look back to Brentford. So Brentford were a joke last season. Honestly, it's amazing they stayed up thanks to all the, I think, ineptitude around them. Thomas Frank has stuck around, though. Still like him, but really can't really explain what happened to Brentford last season. David Raya left. That was dramatic, but shouldn't have been too big of a deal. In terms of what they've lost, really nothing of value besides Raya, who's gone all season anyway. They brought in a center forward, Igor Thiago from Bruges, who definitely has scored a bunch of goals on an international stage. That's where I think we would know him from. And then some Jisoo Kim as a center back and Ben Winterbottom as a goalkeeper. Looks very young based on this picture. No transfer fees listed. So we'll see what happens. Igor Thiago, their new signing, of course, has an injury flag already and has a meniscus injury. So yikes. But Ivan Toney's still waiting for him to be sold, probably waiting for the highest bidder. Brian Mboma was very good. We'll see what they get from Kevin Schade, the Sports Club Freiburg player, who has been in and out of the lineup to say the least. There's some good attacking talent in Brentford's side that we saw from years ago. I felt like they were a little bit overvalued last year, and certainly a lot of their collapses at the end of games were certainly hard to take a lot. And ultimately, they started with a really easy schedule and were not able to take much advantage of it. So we'll see really what happens with them. It looks like Jisoo Kim was from Brentford B, so not a huge addition there. Doesn't seem like too much has changed really with Brentford. Going to see them try to score goals and kill games, maybe do a little bit more scoring at home. I would consider them more likely to be relegated than Wolves, but I don't know. There's a way to profit off that, unfortunately. Move next to Fulham, who were very quick to reach safety and then kind of fell apart, as you would suspect. But ultimately, I think Marco Silva has been good for them, and I look forward to seeing what Fulham turn into this season. Certainly a West London club, a couple good years, get some stability, certainly could spend more, something I would suspect. In terms of, I guess, what to expect, Marco Silva sticking around. Their departures, they sold Joao Palhinha to Bayern Munchen, which was expected to happen last season. They held on to him and stayed up, so that was a big deal. Transferred Tosin Adarabayo, there we go. Geez, some of these names are hard to pronounce at this hour. He's moved to Chelsea on a free transfer. D. Cordova-Reid, as I already mentioned, left for Leicester on a free transfer. Marek Rodak left for some club I've never even seen before on a free transfer. So it looks like just somewhere in Saudi Arabia. Al-Ettifaq. Luke Harris has gone to Birmingham City on a loan. So, not a lot of big changes there. Adarabayo is certainly someone that might be missed in that back line. But Joao Palhinha certainly is very, very important. One of the most important, I think, central defensive midfielders. Gets certainly good for getting red cards and yellow cards often and getting suspended multiple times throughout the season for yellow card accumulation. But ultimately, I guess the Adarabayo doesn't seem to be as big of a loss because it seemed like it was Bassi and Ream starting the end of the season. But very curious to see what Jedi Robinson does at left back because he was the player of the year last season. In terms of rivals, Emile Smith-Rowe has been brought in as a number 10. Just didn't have much playing time at Arsenal. Ryan Sessegnon is still around. He's left back, free transfer. And then Jorge Cuenca, starting center back for Villarreal. It's interesting. Spent a little bit less than 7 million euros. It seems pretty cheap, especially moving to the Premier League. We'll see really where the goals come from. Rodrigo Muniz was really good towards the end of last season. It was something they just really needed. I don't know what to expect from Raul Jimenez, the Mexican international, but we'll see. Andreas Pereira, one of the best players out there. I'm curious to see what his partnership will look like with Emile Smith-Rowe. Those will be interesting. And then we'll see what happens in the midfield, replacing what was lost in Joao Palhinha. Got a lot of money for it, but big questions on Sasa Lucic trying to come in and fill that void because he really hasn't impressed much in his time at the club. Move next to, now we're getting further and further away from the relegation picture. We'll go to Bournemouth next at plus 750. I think the Adoni Iraola first season was great. Ultimately, I think it really shown through as a very good season for a very heralded manager coming from Rayo Vallecano. And it took a little while to get in there, but I thought he played his brand of football, and it was I think will only improve this season, especially sticking around. In terms of departures, Lloyd Kelly, center back, free transfer. Joe Rothwell, loan transfer at center midfield to Leeds in the second division. They lost Kiefer Moore for less than 2 million euros. Not a big deal. And other names that I haven't really even seen. So it doesn't seem like they've lost a lot. I mean, Lloyd Kelly, I guess, might be important, but I don't know how much he's playing in defense really end of season anyway. So that's pretty good. Was a substitute in their final match against Chelsea, but so what? In terms of rivals, Luis Sinisterra, that's certainly a very valuable attacker. Played a lot for the Dutch national team this summer in the Euro. And as Unal, we'll see if we can keep him healthy, as he's had an ACL issue. Dean Huijsen, center back, coming in from Juventus. Alex Paulson, a goalkeeper, and Daniel Jevison, who I barely know that name, I gotta say. So I think the question for Bournemouth is, I mean, they're going to play a sit back and counterattack, and that's exactly what I want, honestly, I gotta say, if I'm betting a team, especially a weaker team. I think we'll see what Solanke can deliver this year. Awesome center forward for them, and I love the idea with Enes Ünal behind as well. Seeing if they can somehow play together, probably not likely in an Iraola system, but I really like Bournemouth. See no reason to change. They played great at home. I guess that's kind of ringing true for a lot of these teams, and certainly will for the next on our list. Crystal Palace, 9-1 odds to be relegated. I guess I'm sticking with these relegated things for a fairly long time, maybe longer than I expected. Let's see. That is Crystal Palace. They are okay. That's not what I meant to do. They are the 10th most likely. So we're talking about mid-table sides here. Maybe that is potentially of interest to. I'm trying to see if there are better odds that I can potentially talk to, because odds to win the Premier League without the Big Six, odds to win the Premier League without Man City, since they're favorites. Let's see. Finish in bottom half. Maybe that's something of interest to speak about here. Finish in top half, maybe. So Crystal Palace, even money to finish in top half. They're 10th most likely to be relegated. So with 20 teams, that puts you right there. I guess if you're finishing top half, you got to finish 10th. So that's why it's even money right there, as expected. And they're actually, I guess they are, so Bournemouth are 2-1 odds to finish in the top half. Crystal Palace, even money. So getting into the Crystal Palace side, I mean, what an incredible run to finish their season. Probably wish the season went on longer, despite the general desire for all soccer players to get on the sunbeds or whatever. But maybe with the Euros this summer, that was a little bit different. Big questions on what they're going to sell this year, Crystal Palace. That is, I loved Oliver Glasner when he was at Eintracht Frankfurt. Before that, at Wolfsburg from the Bundesliga in Germany. It seemed to really get the team firing, and honestly, what he did for Frankfurt, winning and getting into the Champions League on a really bottom half of the German Bundesliga type of side, was incredible just a couple seasons ago. Very interested to see what Crystal Palace do. They've already sold Elise to Bayern München for 53 million euros. That's big. But in terms of the other sales, I haven't really seen them a lot yet. They have Daichi Kamada in from Lazio, who played for Glasner at Eintracht Frankfurt. That'll be probably really easy to work. Ismail Assar, who's always been rumored to move for big money, 15 million euros from Marseille after being at Watford for a while. Chadi Riyad, center back, who played a lot of big minutes for Real Betis, kind of in the middle of the season, debuted against Barcelona and then really kept his job despite the team really performing poorly that day. So losing Elise is a big deal, but trying to keep Elise and Eze healthy together has been really hard. I'm still a little bit nervous that Eberechi Eze is going to get sold, but we'll see. 59 million euro price tag. We'll see how much they want to compete and how much they're trying to build for the future versus try to stay in the league potentially this year. But turning that Elise sale for 53 million euros into Kamada, Sarr, and a center back, and still having 23 million euros left is pretty good business, it seems to me. We'll see what happens the rest of these transfer windows. But Jean-Philippe Mateta, great player for Mainz before he wanted a new deal a couple seasons ago, really came on the end of last season. I expect him to pick up right where he left off. Certainly a little bit less pressure, I guess, that the Crystal Palace side can put on, because Elise is not there, but it was so infrequent that Elise was also playing alongside Eberechi Eze. So I'm not sure that's as concerning to me just yet, though, until they, I guess, sell Eze. Daniel Munoz looked good for Colombia in the Copa America this summer, was incredible attacking right back, essentially, for Crystal Palace last season. I really like this team a lot coming into the year, and really like them on the road at Brentford week 1, but we'll get to that podcast a little bit later down the line. Just above Crystal Palace and to finish top half, of the Premier League, we have looks like Brighton, which interesting place considering their European situation, advancing through the group stage. I think won their group last year was a pretty big deal. I'm concerned about them certainly this season, and definitely with manager changes and such. They are 14-1 odds to be relegated, and pretty much. I mean, we saw Roberto De Zerbi last season basically saying, "Well, we are Brighton. We have to play the kids, and that's why we haven't been playing very well lately." I feel like that might have been why he moved on, honestly, but it happens. And, I'm not too surprised by that necessarily, but that is something to think about because Brighton are favored to finish the top half. And they certainly, if you're looking for an underdog, if you're going to tie money up for entire soccer season, you probably want to feel pretty comfortable that one of these odds on favorites to finish top half do not make it. So I forgot to load the window while I was talking about that. Oops, but here we go. Brighton coming up. Hopefully the computer's not falling apart on me. So far it is not. Brighton start on the road at Everton, so that'll be interesting. Pretty great matchup, I think, for Everton at home. I would expect them to maybe be a slight favorite at home, or maybe if we get a pick 'em or something like that, that might be of interest for me. Looking at Fabian Hurzela, a 31-year-old manager for Brighton Hove Albion. De Zerbi was well known. I've never heard of this dude before, so I probably should click on him and figure out where the heck he's from live on YouTube, and eventually recorded and posted to Spotify and to Apple Podcasts, plus, of course, to the various platforms in 1-minute versions, in the reels and the shorts with my best bet coming end of show. So in terms of, so I'm looking at transfer history as a player. That's not really what I was hoping for. Okay, so St. Pauli, I think, got promoted to the German Bundesliga from the Schweizer Liga, the second division. Actually born in Houston, Texas, interestingly enough, not only about 4.5 hours down the road. He's now left St. Pauli after 55 matches, now as the Brighton manager. We'll see how that goes. I will believe that he is not good until I'm convinced otherwise. Probably means I need to dive into St. Pauli a little bit. In terms of departures, Pascal Gross has left for Dortmund. Steven Alzate doesn't have a team yet. Lallana has gone to Southampton on a free transfer. Not a lot of big things here. In terms of what has been bought or brought in for Brighton Hove Albion, Yankuba Minte, 35 million euro transfer from Newcastle. Don't know where that money comes from, but who knows? Mats Weifa from Feyenoord in Holland for 30 million euros. I do like that signing. He's looked good to me, and it's certainly been very, very valuable to a Feyenoord side that's been good. Ibrahim Osman from FCN, that looks like Nordjylland. I don't know him yet. Malik Junior Yalkuye, don't know him, and a free transfer from an Arsenal under 21 player. So we'll see. I mean, João Pedro was awesome for a lot of the season. Deniz Undav looks like he's returned from Stuttgart, but I feel like he might end up going back there. We'll see. I think it'll be a different season, of course, for Brighton, as I don't think have European engagements on their list this season on their chalkboard. Let's see, fixtures by competition. I do love Transfer Market. Big plug for that. They're not paying me. I would love that, but great spot to get a ton of information if you're looking for it, and player values and such. And they do kind of step out and say what they think players are valued, which you don't really see throughout the rest of the world. I don't see anything here. So Brighton should certainly improve from not having to play 2 matches a week. That was certainly very tough on them last season. Maybe makes that minus 120 to finish in the top half of the Premier League a little bit easier to achieve. Move next to West Ham, who have finally gotten rid of the curse or the corpse that was David Moyes. So he did great for them. I don't want to speak of him that negatively, but everyone wanted him gone, and I don't think he deserved it. But, c'est la vie. In comes Julian Lopetegui, who we know is going to play a defensive brand of football, and that should work for West Ham how they've played under Moyes, but maybe with a little bit more attacking or possession ability, at least that's what he did at Sevilla. And honestly, I liked him at Wolves too, until I think he resigned right a week before the season started. Gary O'Neill came in and basically took over and kind of ran the ship just the way he would have. West Ham minus 125 finished in the top half. Not terrible, of course. In terms of departures, Ben Rama gone to Lyon. Flynn Downs was already gone. Tilo Kehrer already gone. Ben Johnson free transfer, probably not a big deal. So what have they lost? Really, I don't think too much. Certainly players that might have been valuable to them, but they were already essentially gone. They brought in Max Kilman for nearly 48 million euros. Crescencio Somerville from Leeds. Niklas Füllkrug, big signing to score some goals up top, 27 million euros. Luis Guilherme from Palmeiras in, I believe that is Brazil. I think. Yeah, I think so. And then Guido Rodriguez, Argentine from Real Betis, brought in a free transfer. I mean, they've done some business. I kind of like what West Ham have done. Still have mainstays sticking around. Ings off the bench, most likely. Mikel Antonio, probably same story. Jared Bowen, one of the best players in the Premier League last season. Cornet, I think, is a lot better. And Paqueta, we'll see if he sticks around and if their gambling things end up hitting. But I feel like there's a lot here. Big questions are defensive mistakes, which they hopefully solve some of those by bringing in Kilman. Areola looks like he should be the starter here. Wes Foderingham coming in from Sheffield United, though he kind of lost his job last year. Fabianski, I'm sure they don't want to play too much. And then Naif Aguirre should be a lot better, I think, longer he plays, the Moroccan international. We'll see if Zuma can get back. Mavropanos is a big mistake type of center back, especially dangerous. But I think Lopetegui will help. Former goalkeeper he was. And I got to say, there's 4 decent center backs here. If they could just get Mavropanos to play well, then maybe injuries won't be as impactful for them. I don't think that West Ham look like a team that should be relegated. So I think that's probably one of those I don't need to look too closely to. And I do trust Lopetegui. I feel like he was a cheat code cash all the time when he was managing Sevilla. Move next on the list of finished top halves. Let's see. That would bring us to Aston Villa. So they've spent a ton of money. That's been clear. They have a very interesting run because they are going to be in Champions League, and that is going to be a big, big test for Aston Villa. That's a big question. We'll see how that ends up going. But ultimately, Aston Villa, I mean, they've had some really great runs. They looked very good last year. Somehow beat Arsenal and Manchester City in the same week. That was pretty awesome. But I guess we're not seeing since the competitions are not updated. So maybe I'm wrong on Brighton, but I do think they're only playing Premier League anyway. What more can I say? Unai Emery is a gold mine, and as a favorite, he's not really someone I love, but I don't really bet favorites in this sport, so not a huge concern for me. But when we look at the deals that have been made, Douglas Luiz traded essentially for Samuel Illing Jr. To Juventus for over 51 million euros. Moussa Diaby left for some money, 60 million euros. That's a potentially big loss, but for his pace, which is certainly game-changing and I think fits well into the Unai Emery style, he's never really ever going to defend, and that's a big concern. They sold a name, Tim Iroegbunam, don't know that. Morgan Sanson has stayed at Nice. Coutinho, I don't know that he was even relevant. So in terms of arrivals, though, here's where the money has been spent. Onana from Everton, 59 million euros. Ian Matson, who looks so great in Borussia Dortmund's run to the Champions League final. He's come in officially from Chelsea for 44.5 million euros. Cameron Archer, a goal scorer for Sheffield United, will probably be a bench player, but someone they'd look to grow in the future. There's been a lot of money spent. I feel like the big test is how they're going to handle multiple competitions, and we'll see how that all goes. Emi Buendia coming in, that's of interest, though he's been hurt for a while. Still has a flag, cruciate ligament. Ollie Watkins, the knife to my stomach against the Netherlands, and honestly to all of the Dutch in that crowd in the Euro this summer coming on for Harry Kane. Looking forward to big things from him on a much bigger stage. And this team is good. We saw a lot from Morgan Rogers. I feel like this Aston Villa team will be good. The big question is, can they handle balancing multiple competitions? And that will be the biggest question for a lot of teams, though I don't think that they are most likely to struggle with it as they've been in European competitions recently. I'm really looking for teams that don't have a lot of budget, that sold some players, that go into European competitions that weren't really expecting it or didn't plan for it for years, because these things don't happen overnight, and you either overspend or underspend, and those things can be big, big problems. I'll move next to Tottenham and those Hotspur, who have been really fun to bet against, I got to say. Angeball, I really don't like. I don't think it works. Maybe when you're the much better team, but it honestly gives so many chances away that I just am really not a fan. I do respect the man for playing his way, though I don't think it really works. And it was a pretty good season without Harry Kane last year, though. Ultimately, I don't think it was a successful one for a lot of the supporters. So Ange Postecoglou is still around. In terms of departures, Peril Emil Højbjerg, who was barely playing. Brian Heel has left for Girona. That's probably good because he wasn't playing. Eric Dyer stayed with Bayern München. Joe Rodon. He's at Leeds, sticking there, and Ryan Sessegnon, who cares? In terms of what they brought in at Tottenham, they brought in Archie Gray, a midfielder from Leeds. Young, not really sure about. Lucas Bergvall, and then some other names I don't really know. So it seems like Daniel Levy's waiting to do some movement. We'll see what happens with Timo Werner, who is on loan to, or I guess is loaned from Leipzig. I don't know exactly how that worked, but there's a lot of talent in this team, of course. We'll see if it can be used in the right way, because defensively they were a joke, and I just don't think you can play that aggressively as often as Tottenham did, which is basically the entire time. They never. Certainly, their defense had some issues when Mickey Van de Ven went down because he couldn't chase down everyone to help when they made big mistakes. I'd love to see Radek Dragoshin, the Romanian, come in. I think Tottenham are still a team I'd like to bet against, but they're not really in any sort of danger of being relegated. I just think they won't perform as well as expected. They're minus 1,000 to finish in the top half. It does feel like a pretty big drop for them to not do so. Moving to a very interesting club, and that's Chelsea, with their financial situations. Huge squad. It's so obvious to everyone around this entire marketplace that they have to do something about that, but I don't know that they care. It's just really, really bizarre to me, but c'est la vie. In terms of what to expect from Chelsea this year, I don't really know, because not being able to keep Pochettino was wild. They did lure away the Leicester City manager, have a squad value of over $1 billion. Yet they are the same price as Tottenham to finish the top half. 1 to 1,000 bet will win you $100. That's not a lot, but I think says kind of what Chelsea are, and that's a team in flux. Lewis Hall had already moved to Newcastle. They sold Ian Matson, who was on loan at Dortmund. Hutchinson gone, don't really know him. And then other names that don't really seem to matter. In terms of what they've brought in, they spent 25 million euros on a goalkeeper for their 8th goalkeeper on their squad, and Philip Jorgensen. He's all right, but I don't know what the hell they're doing there. Omari Kellyman in from Aston Villa for 23 million euros. Okay. Attacking midfielder that they don't have enough. I do like the Kieran Dewsbury Hall move, but we'll see how this all works, because there's a lot of players there, and it's really hard to predict what they all will do, I got to say. So I don't really know what the answer is here, and they're going to have to purge a ton of these players, and will not sell them at good values, I don't think. But maybe a year of Nkunku being a lot healthier, attacking midfielder listed on transfer market, but played left wing for Red Bull Leipzig his most successful years. I don't know. Rumors that Conor Gallagher is going to Atletico Madrid. That's an issue. And we'll see what Enzo Maresca can do, because he's walking into a toxic environment, to say the very least, or as little as possible. I'll move next to Manchester United, who were somehow able to win the FA Cup. Shocking Manchester City down the stretch, but Man City also were kind of struggling towards the end of the season. I don't really know what to say about Manchester United either. They're minus 1,100 to finish in the top half, so slightly more expensive than Chelsea and Tottenham, but only by, 10%. In terms of, I don't know why they kept there in Ten Hag, probably because they couldn't figure out what to do otherwise. They sold Mason Greenwood officially to Olympique de Marseille after his loan spell at Getafe in Spain. Varane is gone to Como. Martial finally gone. Willy Kombalala gone, which is surprising to me, but I guess it's a $10 million sell. Weird. Alvaro Carreras, don't know that name. But in terms of arrivals, they got Xerxes coming in from Bologna. He's talented, played for Bayern München, and then was great for Bologna last year. But I don't know what he's going to do for them, honestly. Lenny Yoro, who's bought for 62 million euros from Lille, is already hurt, so that's a concern. Højlund's hurt too, so maybe that's where Xerxes comes in to kind of fill that void. I just don't believe in Erik ten Hag. I mean, great for him to keep his job. I still want to bet against this team as much as I possibly can. I don't think there's anything I want to do to pick them to finish in the second half or bottom half because they have so much money. But I mean, not an impossible theory, I got to say. So something I'm interested there as well. Yeah, I mean, we'll see how they handle what they're doing. And that's probably not very useful to anyone listening to this podcast as it drags on longer and longer and longer. Next on the list, Newcastle United. So that's an interesting team. Clearly did not handle Champions League very well last year, but we will end up seeing how they do this season. They are currently, they are 40-1 to win the title. 22-1 are Tottenham. Yet we have some better price, minus 1,200 to finish the top half. So that seems like it doesn't agree really. So I've basically gone in order: Tottenham, Chelsea, Manchester United, and Newcastle. And Tottenham, Manchester United, Chelsea are all inside Newcastle to finish to win the Premier League, according to the odds. So maybe that just means that people have been betting Newcastle to finish top half. That's where they want to play their bets. They're not really believing in them to win the title. There's a lot of Newcastle fans, of course, in the north of England, but I don't know that I can really predict how that does financially. So there we are. 51 minutes into this episode already. So this is going to be fun to post tonight. I'm never going to sleep, I guess. But yeah, I just feel like Newcastle, they are another team that plays incredibly well at home. They are able to beat teams that they don't deserve to beat. They have huge comebacks, all these sort of things. And they're a team I'd like to back at home this year. But I don't know how many opportunities we're going to have it, especially if there's going to be a lot of bets coming in and finish in a good position. The certainly top half doesn't really say that much. I would love to be in a position where I'm betting on Newcastle because that was really good a couple seasons ago. And then last year, betting against them as a favorite was good, especially away from home, but they still performed fairly well in their home venue. Eddie Howe sticking around as manager. And then looking at departures, that incredible fee for Elliot Anderson, I guess based on age, and this Minte guy to Brighton and Hove, that's 76 million euros and change. Pretty good. Kept Lewis Hall, was already in the team. Vlachodimos, I'm guessing, is a backup goalkeeper potentially, but maybe not because Nick Pope, there's some rumors he'll move. It's hard to, I just can't wait to the end of the transfer window so I know who's actually on these teams. Lloyd Kelly will be important for center back depth. I don't think you want to see him doing anything important. William Osula, center forward in from Sheffield United, nearly 12 million euros. Maybe he helps, but probably another backup to Callum Wilson and Alexander Isak, who are very hard to keep healthy, and that's a big question. And their center backs, I think, I was pretty impressed that Bruno Guimaraes in their defensive midfield was able to not get suspended for as long as he was. I've got some questions about the health of Sven Botsman, who was important. Should be back October 1st, but that's a long way away, unfortunately. A lot of goalkeepers on this team, but we'll see if that ends up filling it out. Fabian Schär, just awesome, so reliable. Free kick goal scorer as well. Was very important for the Swiss national team. A big reason why they've gone as far as they have. Jamal Lascelles coming back November 1st. So there seems like there's a lot of thin center back issues with Newcastle. Still want to bet against them away, but Southampton coming in is a pretty easy landing spot for their first match of the season. I think from Newcastle moving up, definitely the I expect they'll probably sign some more center backs coming forward, but we'll see. From Newcastle, I'll move up to Liverpool, who are not even listed on this finished top half. A lot of expectations for this new manager who's going to have a really tough time, I think, replacing Jurgen Klopp. And just awesome man, it seemed. Definitely a complainer, but incredible what he did at Liverpool. And looks like he's not going to coach the U.S. men's national team. Sad. But Arne Slot coming in from the Dutch league and certainly is, I think, an aggressive attacking manager in a different way that because Klopp was known for the gegenpress, the counter press from Germany that everyone seems to use now. From Feyenoord to Liverpool, big step up. We'll see if Arne Slot is able to do it. He turned down, from what I remember, Tottenham before Postecoglou took a job, but we'll see how it all looks. In terms of departures, I mean, Thiago, not a big deal. Matip, we'll see if he hasn't signed anywhere. There's been no one that's really gone, no one that's really showed up. So the team kind of looks the same. They certainly have done a great job building in the past. They'll have great players. We'll see what that turns into. And I'm curious to see what this team looks like this season, though. There's certainly a ton of great players. Looks like Sepp Vandenberg was on loan at Mainz. We'll see if he goes back out on loan again, but still Van Dijk around. Konate getting even more seasoning. I mean, this is going to be a good team again. And I'm very curious to see how Arne Slot, a very offensive manager, kind of changed around what they're doing. And it might be one of those things that I need to see. They do start on the road at Ipswich. Great spot to start if you have to play a road game, to play a newly promoted side that's worth nowhere even close, maybe 10% of your squad value. Yeah, 950 million euros, it looks like, with Liverpool right now today. I think that only leaves us two more teams left to get through, and then I can give you a best bet for futures. I probably should go over what BetOnline is offering right now and give a little bit more. Liverpool currently plus 650 to win the Premier League. We'll move next to Arsenal plus 185, and of course they will be trying to not lose on the last day, or trying to not be 1 point outside of the Manchester City to do what they can to win a trophy they've been seeking for a while, and have been in good position to do it, just haven't been able to. Arsenal, I mean, I do have some questions really about how much better they are than Liverpool, but Arne Slot and his entrance to the squad definitely does give some concerns. And if Liverpool couldn't do it playing a Europa League schedule, then do we believe that they'll do it in a Champions League place this year? That's a big question. Mikel Arteta is still around. He sold in Mill Smith Rowe, which I think makes sense. There wasn't a lot of time for him. Also, Sambi Lokonga gone to Sevilla, Nuno Tavares to Lazio, El Neni's old, who cares? Cedric Suarez, who cares? Bringing in Riccardo Calafiori, big signing, started, I think, surprisingly, played left back for a lot of the year with Bologna, started at center back for Italy in the Euro. So clearly a lot of expectations for him. David Raya sticking around a goalkeeper. I don't like that choice, but I guess here we are, and haven't moved Aaron Ramsdale. I guess he's just going to, Rammer's just going to sit behind everyone and look like a weirdo the whole time. I do feel like there's some limitations to Arsenal. They basically pin everyone back. Everyone respects them. Calafiori should certainly help center back, but that wasn't really an issue. I think Saliba and Gabriel were a great partnership. Maybe Calafiori plays a little bit left back because he's very versatile. Though Kivior, I thought, did fairly well there, and I don't think they want to play Zinchenko. Chiarantini, we'll see if he even is on the team or if he goes back on loan somewhere else to get hurt again. Plenty of great players in this team. I just feel like there's such a divide between them and Manchester City. I think very disappointing that Manchester City were unable to win the FA Cup, to close off a disappointing year and to finish it that way. Plus 140 to win the Premier League. I think the big question is, can Arsenal do it? Because Liverpool are so far behind with so much questioned about them. Certainly Man City plus 140. I mean, not a terrible price by any means. Let's see if I can figure out what they were priced last season. They were minus 165 down to minus 140, minus 120 as we got closer to the kickoff of the season. But like, honestly, it's kind of a surprise for me to see Manchester City with a plus money offering right now to win the league. It seems very obvious. Ederson, of course, still seems to be pretty banged up, but like, I don't know, like that's a big deal. I mean, they are nowhere in any sort of threat. We'll see in the Community Shield. Maybe they take a loss there and that looks really bad for them, blah, blah, blah. But I don't see anyone or have any sort of belief in who's really going to knock Manchester City off, though they've been an incredible run and they're in a position where everyone is fighting for them. The nice part is they've brought in Savinho from Girona. He was awesome. Jan Couto, also on the Girona side, is left, but he wasn't on the team. All these players that seem to be on the list, other than maybe Sergio Gomez leaving for Real Sociedad, but he barely played for Man City. So nothing's really changed with the club. Alvarez rumors moving to Atletico Madrid. Haven't seen that confirmed yet, though it does seem like that could potentially hurt them a little bit. They just have so much talent. We'll see if De Bruyne moves for somewhere in Qatar or something like that financially. Just wants to get his money in when he's 33, though I'm sure it will still be there in the future. This team looks great. I don't really see why they're going to not win this. So plus 140 looks very, very interesting to me. I got to say, as I'm going through it, doesn't seem like I'm going out on too much of a limb, but say la vie. And so I feel like now I'll just go through kind of what I guess BetOnline is offering right now. Of course, check your books. If you could slide in my DMs at @thereal_G1 on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube, anywhere you want to go, just tell me a little bit more. If you see some line that's appetizing, I would love to talk about it. Feel free to leave that in a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. That'd be very huge for search rankings, and would do a lot, I think, to maybe have some a little bit more interactivity. I'll try to be a little bit more cognizant of times that I start. This is now almost 1:30 a.m. locally, so I guess I'll see when I sleep tonight. But in terms of, I guess, offerings, and maybe I'll highlight a couple of English Premier League, as we just talked about. Manchester City to win at plus 140, Arsenal plus 185, Liverpool plus 650. Then we have a pretty big divide to Chelsea 16-1, Manchester United 22, Tottenham 22-1, Newcastle 40-1, Aston Villa going to have to balance a lot, 66-1, and then we're at 200-1 to Brighton. So clearly some tranches here or some divides. Looks like a Manchester City Arsenal race. Maybe Liverpool takes on or comes on with Arne Slot. I just don't really see it. In terms of other potential opportunities in betting futures, as this is a futures podcast, we'll be doing the weekly stuff with game lines coming up very, very soon. We have, without the big six, Newcastle are favored to win, minus 105. Aston Villa are next, plus 240, but very different in terms of international continental competitions. Brighton 9-1, West Ham 11-1 under Lopetegui is interesting. Crystal Palace 14-1, but can they keep all their players? It's a big, big question. You probably have to get these bets in before the season starts for at least to get the value. Odds to win without Man City, Arsenal minus 160. I have some interest in Liverpool plus 325, with a lot to be figured out with Arne Slot. Relegation numbers, as I kind of went through a lot on each team. Leicester minus 280, Ipswich minus 125, Southampton plus 105, Everton plus 185, same as Nottingham Forest plus 185, Wolves plus 350, Brentford plus 425. Looks a little bit interesting if you're looking for a long shot, especially if you want to tie up money for a long time. Don't think Fulham at plus 450 or Bournemouth plus 750 are really in that kind of world. To finish bottom half, maybe some plus money teams. Aston Villa plus 300, 3-1 odds that they don't do well balancing multiple competitions, but an early Champions League exit should probably make that fairly easy for them to survive the second half of the season. So I'm not sure that I'm interested there. Chelsea plus 650 is very interesting, longer shot, but with who knows what's going on with that club, and especially if the financial fair play people come calling. Newcastle 6-1. I don't think we'll have as tough of a year. And the rest of those, I don't know if there's anything of that too much interest to me. To finish top half, usually start in the even money range. Crystal Palace plus 100. That looks interesting to me. Bournemouth plus 200, so 2-1 odds. Even money on Crystal Palace, as I said. Fulham plus 275, Brentford plus 300. I do not like Everton. I think it'd be a big, big climb for them. Wolves don't have enough scoring, I don't think. Top four finish is of interest. Chelsea plus 120. Nope. Manchester United plus 200. Tottenham plus 200. Newcastle plus 220. Maybe there is some interest to me. It does certainly look very interesting. Top six finish, we get a little bit further down. Aston Villa plus 140. Newcastle are minus 120 there. So that's of some interest, I think. I think top six, I have to look it up, but probably is a Europa League finish, which does matter. And certainly all these teams need the extra revenue to keep buying players and such. West Ham plus 450 looks interesting for a top six, especially, but I don't think that they really go backwards under a new manager. Top goal scorer, Erling Haaland minus 170. I don't think anyone's doing any bets other than that, because they're going to dominate the league, dominate the teams they play, and he's going to take a lot of penalties. It would be expected if he could stay healthy. Mo Salah 9-1, second most likely. Isak 14-1, Heung-min Son 16-1, Ollie Watkins 16-1. Interesting there, though. You want to be sure that he's taking penalties. Now that Douglas Luiz is gone, maybe that guarantees that. But we'll see, I guess, moving forward. And that probably brings me to the end of this episode and time to get in on a futures episode best bet, because that's why you all hung around for this long, long podcast. I really appreciate everyone coming in and sticking around a very, very long time. It's a great pleasure that I can put these on. I'll be doing this for the top 5 European soccer leagues. Next would be La Liga, or probably based on what leagues start the soonest. But La Liga, German Bundesliga, Ligue 1 in France, also Serie A. Any leagues other than that you want me to cover besides continental stuff, please shout. I'll be very interested in doing things of that nature. But I think if there's not anything further to plug, we do have plenty of podcasts coming out on the Betting Pitch Podcast Network. Major League Baseball comes out every Tuesday night for the rest of the season, going through our Wednesday baseball card. We have an NFL podcast coming out, A_Schnicker. That will be out. I believe we're doing Monday nights. We have NFC win totals, AFC win totals, and the Super Bowl futures already discussed, already out there. I've already seen a few views on those already. Would love to see more of those as the season gets closer. And of course, anything else you want to see, stock show, potentially I've been pitching or thinking about for a while. Please shout if those things interest you, because certainly trying to do my best to give you anything you want to listen to or anything you're curious about. And of course, want you to get in and follow me wherever you can. Jim Acker is saying, hi, how are you? Thank you for coming in, Jim. I appreciate you saying that. I don't think that's relevant to what I'm talking about right now, especially after an hour and 6 minutes. So I hope you don't mind that I am not doing more than just telling you who I am, but maybe the spam bots have made it. Thank you for making me feel at least a little bit realistic, or some people that are listening at this hour, though I know most of you are watching on replay or listening on replay and all that sort of stuff. So it's time for the ultimate best bet. So let's do it. Hey, this is the real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. This is the English Premier League Futures Preview episode, going through all 20 of the English Premier League. We are recording this in the wee hours, Friday, August 9th in Dallas, Texas. And there's a little bit on each of the teams, probably a little bit more in depth on some than others, but a little bit out of the soccer, I guess, podcasting game. It's been a little while as I've been focusing on the other sports here more in the United States of America. But we'll be putting out Ultimate Best Bet end of show, as I am about to do and recording live. This is going on at the real_G Warner on Instagram and on YouTube. And we'll be putting out content there with my best bet to summarize in 1 minute Instagram short, or Instagram Reel at YouTube Short going forward in the season. For my best bet in this episode, I'm going to go with Manchester City to win the Premier League plus 140. I think the over or better than even odds, I don't think reflects the nature. I think Liverpool is down. Same for Arsenal. So take Manchester City plus 140. And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will talk to you all very, very soon. In the next episode probably will be La Liga. We'll talk to you very soon. Probably doing a pregame.com baseball episode in the next few hours. So I'll see you then and talk to you all soon.
Recording stopped.